Welcome, everybody. This is another episode of What Would It Cost Florida with your host, me, Niels Decker, and we have a special guest today, EJ Encinosa, and we're going to be talking about baseball, his past. We're going to be talking about how we're creating conversations, and he already's been in conversations to help athletes transition and also prepare for a short period of their career and what life looks like after that, and some awesome stories around it, and I'm looking forward to it. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome, everybody. Today we're here with EJ Encinosa. I love that last name. Is it correctly?
Encinosa. Very close.
Yeah, Encinosa. EJ, thank you for being on, and it's a pleasure. And it's been awesome getting to know you. And through Jonathan Diaz, we got connected. So Diaz, thank you. But it's awesome to have you here today and just really talk and get into it.
No, thank you for having me. Most importantly, I know we've had a couple conversations and have done quite a bit of brainstorming, and from the sports field to financial literacy to just everyday, wealth planning, our network, and I think it's a great thing that you guys are doing here, and I'm happy to be on board and help push the content.
Yeah, we appreciate you, and it's exciting because a lot of the conversations we're going to get into is some exciting conversations on how we can really continue to, be stewards for those that are following similar footsteps that we have, those paths that we have been on personally, and to give back. So I'm super excited about that, and what we kind of are, the brainstorming that we've been doing. And before we go to that point, I want to for the listeners, I want to go a little bit first into who's EJ, your background, your history.
Try to make this quick. So EJ Encinosa, his story. So born and raised here in Miami, Florida. Yeah. Cuban American. I typically say a lot that I hit the lotto. And when I say by that is I've been very blessed with just two amazing parents. Both Cuban immigrants, came to the United States at a young age. Yeah. Families who left everything behind. Just one suitcase, and when I say suitcase, it's basically a briefcase that we see people carrying around today. Yeah. Going to a country, didn't know the language. My mom went to New Jersey. My dad stayed here in Miami, Opelika to be exact. And just hearing their stories, and more importantly, just the work ethic that they implemented in me from such a young age. Like to this day, my parents are the two hardest working people I know. My dad still works 6 days a week. Probably at this time he's getting home because he likes working, during the night. The graveyard shift. The graveyard shift.
Crazy.
Loves it. My mom is, if I'm on the way to work, I call her, she's already there. Yeah. I'm coming back to, see my family and take care of my son. And she's, still at the office. Yeah. It's really impressive to watch, and I've been really blessed with just the mental strength, like the coaching that I had as a kid from just like my parents, the values they showed that I still, use today and, pass it along to my children. It's, I got very lucky. So grew up in a very middle-class family. Baseball was kind of in the picture early on. Yeah. I originally wanted to be a soccer player, believe it or not, with this, slow body physique. Yeah. But I remember going to Miami Park, and they had said look, you're too young to play soccer. The league doesn't start till you're 5 years old. And my dad, which was ecstatic because he was not a fan of soccer. No. They had mentioned to him well, T-ball is open. If he wants to do T-ball, he took me there to this park. I go, I think I could do that. And history's since then I play baseball my entire life. A little basketball here and there, but pursued that at a pretty young age. Around 8 or 9 years old, I actually met Jonathan Diaz's dad. Cool. So he was kind of a pioneer in this travel ball era that now it's in my opinion out of control. But he did a recruiting process where he grabbed a bunch of young talented kids, kind of a Miami all-star team, and started promoting us through travel ball. And man, we were good.
And what was travel ball?
So basically, like, you have your recreational leagues, for example, like Tamiami, Grapeland Park. Yeah. So you go and you play your, let's call it 20 games, you know, your 1 day of practice during the week or 2 days of practice, 1 day of games, and it's that seasonal period, and then that's it. And then you go on to play the next sport, which, you know, I did most of my life was, you know, baseball and basketball and vice versa.
And it was travel ball.
So now, travel ball.
Yeah, makes sense.
So travel ball, we were now playing in these, you know, these tournaments across the state, across the country, across the world. And at a very high, you know, big stage, we performed really well. We had a bunch of great guys. You know, I'm not going to name the whole list because I don't want to miss anybody, but a lot of guys I went to, you know, majority of the guys played D1 baseball, got drafted, you know, some played in major leagues. So I was already like, and I'll go into maybe probably later on, but I got very lucky because of Tony to be surrounded by just great kids and great families. Yeah. Which, you know, I want to allude now, but I think it's very important to have a core group around you. Yeah. You're only going to get like improve in life and get to the next stage based on your surroundings. Yeah. So we did that, and to be honest, I was one of like the worst guys on the team. I was always kind of big, threw pretty hard, but hit more batters than I struck out probably. Yeah. Didn't hit as many home runs as someone would think. Yeah. We had some freaks on the team, but I always saw myself as kind of like a B player on the team. And when I got to high school, I realized, oh my God, like, I am one of our best players on our high school team. It was just because of the nucleus. I was kind of in the middle of the pack. Yeah. And it kind of boosted my confidence. I went to Coral Park Senior High School, public school, and very early on had a lot of success. And funny story, not a funny story, kind of a sad story, but I finally caught up to my body. Was throwing, you know, very hard, having a lot of success on the mound, getting invited to these, you know, big teams to play with throughout the summer. And, you know, probably in my recruiting process, my junior year, I got hurt. So in the middle of a game, my elbow popped. I thought it was Tommy John. It was a piece of bone that actually chipped off my elbow. Luckily, you know, it was going to be a short-term rehab. Was able to go through that, but I was kind of missing that core recruiting time where colleges were coming in and making significant offers.
That window was
small, and it's a high stress time for a lot of these kids. And, you know, now there's a little bit more exposure than before. You know, back in that time, you had 2 or 3 tournaments. You had, you know, your season. It was very difficult, depending on what high school you went to actually get some eyes on you. Yeah. So I get hurt, kind of like freaking out. But in the summer, I was able to throw, and my stuff was getting better, and I was throwing harder. I was polishing some secondary pitches, and I started getting, you know, these offers. So UM was my dream school as a kid. Like, I didn't go to Marlins Park. I went to UM, sit in the back in the old stadium, and watch like some of my heroes, you know, play out in front of me. They were like the last to call. Yeah. You know, I was getting calls from Florida, Duke, UNC, Wake Forest, which back then it wasn't much, but today they're, you know, the number 1 team in the country. Yeah. And a part of me really wanted to go to UM. So finally they gave me like this visit to the school, and the pitching coach there, and still there to this day, JD Arteaga, was honest with me. He's like, hey, look, you know, you got hurt. You're a little late to the process, so I couldn't, you know, I didn't reach out to you because I knew I was going to give you a significant scholarship, but I do have a plan for you here. You know, you're basically, our whole entire staff is seniors and juniors. Your first year, you're not going to probably throw that much, and, you know, but once you're a sophomore, junior, it's open slate. You can earn a job. Yeah. And I like that. I've always liked the idea of like earning my position and being in a place to be successful. I was going to be close to my family. Like I mentioned, very close to my mom, my dad. Yeah. So them to come to every game was a big deal. So we finally accepted the offer with UM with the idea of, if I do well, I'll have a good chance to be a starting pitcher my sophomore year, and also there'll be more scholarship pot that I can go after. Yeah. So senior year comes along in high school, and baseball you can get drafted out of high school. I come out blazing that year. Yeah. So all of a sudden, you know, teams are calling, and, you know, the projection in the draft starts getting really high. You know, we see you as as a late first round, second round, third round pick. So you start thinking, you know, this is generational money. I can pay off my parents' house. Like a lot of these ideas come into your mind. And I get hurt again. Same exact issue happens in the middle of the season. So I'm there freaking out. The Twins end up drafting me in, I think, the 23rd round, which I didn't expect at all because I hadn't thrown.
Yeah.
They kind of do this draft and follow or a process similar to it. It's kind of evolved over time. And I was not in a good mental place. I was throwing slower, my erratic delivery, I was throwing balls all over the place. And I was really freaking out that I was going to go to UM and fail.
Yeah.
And then for the first time, I just, you know, I started working out with Steven Perez, who was a shortstop when I was there, and kind of like took the summer off. I was like, you know what? Because of rehab, because of all this, I've continued playing, and I never really let my body relax for the first time.
Yeah.
So I just started focusing more on diet, weightlifting, actual throwing program. And out of nowhere, like in college, you have what's called the fall ball first.
Yep.
So you go through the fall, then you go back home for break during the winter, come back for like a short duration of spring baseball, and then the season starts.
Yep.
So the fall starts, and all of a sudden my arm feels amazing, and I'm throwing well, but you know my expectations are low. It's all these seniors are there, big name guys. You know, you're not going to pitch. Winter comes around. Come back, still throwing really well. My arm's like rubber. Like that feeling of like bouncing back and throwing every day. And JD basically told me, he's like, look, you're going to be coming out of the bullpen. They set the rotation, which was fine with me. I'd never thrown out of a bullpen before, but the idea of being able to get into multiple games and you know, being able to play in all these universities was going to be a fun experience. Sure enough, like one guy in the bullpen gets hurt. We go into the first game of the season. It's a blowout.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, you're throwing the ninth inning. Come in, like, strike out the side. Like, it was the most perfect, like, first appearance in college. And then the next day, my number gets called again.
Yeah.
And then the third day, my number gets called again. And it was just, like, steamrolling. And I was having a lot of success and ended up being our number one arm out of the bullpen that whole year. I think like the most innings, appearances, low CRA.
Yeah.
Not tell myself, it's just I didn't have that expectation going in.
Yeah.
So basically the season ends, freshman All-American. Then, you know, I get a chance to move into the starting rotation, have a successful sophomore year. My junior year, we had an internal conversation between Jim Morse, or 3 as we call him, and JD on perhaps moving back into the bullpen.
Yeah.
We had a lot of success my freshman year, and we had some guys that were coming back. We had some good starting pitchers coming in as freshmen, and we thought to like basically balance out the pitching staff, it would be best for me to go back into the bullpen.
Yeah. So
put me in as a closer. Have a very good, you know, junior year. Kind of the end of the season kind of fell off a little bit, and it kind of affected my draft stock a little bit. But luckily, you know, my number gets called in the 7th round for the San Francisco Giants, and started pursuing my minor league career.
Yeah.
Imagine Miami homegrown kid.
Yeah.
Mom washed my laundry until I was like 20 years old.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, I'm like on a flight to Arizona.
Yeah.
And it's like, see ya, girlfriend, family, friends. I'll see you guys when I see you. You don't know.
Yeah.
Get to Arizona, they do like an MRI on me, and they're like, well, you're basically like one pitch away from tearing your arm. So there's a good chance we're not going to give you your signing bonus. You're going to have to refund us the money for the flight that you came to Arizona, so you can like not lose your amateur status and go back to play for my senior year.
Yeah.
So I'm like freaking out. At the time, my roommate in Arizona was this guy, Ty Block, that he played a couple years in the big leagues. And we're playing catch in the back of like a motel parking lot, like having our agents have the conversations with the team. And, you know, we would like basically run to the field every day from the motel, steal the home run balls. And that's like how we just like kind of got by for this like 4 or 5 day window. I don't know where they get back. They're like, look, we're going to honor your contracts. Tomorrow, your first bullpen, you're part of the team.
Yeah.
So I kind of, you know, went through that process for 5 years where it was, you know, baseball was my life.
Yeah.
I would be in Arizona or Georgia or California, Oregon, and I truly invested my life into it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that same issue with my elbow with the bone kept coming up. Wasn't, towards the tail end, wasn't throwing that well, and kind of had to make that decision. Like, do I really want to pursue this anymore?
Yeah.
In Florida and in Miami, and Jay could attest to this, you see a lot of guys kind of do it for a very long time. And what happens is you come back, when you're 30 years old, and to get into the real world in that transition period. And, I saw myself as, look, you're not going to make it. Like,
you
look yourself in the mirror.
You had to make a choice on like, what am I going to do, and assess at what time. And this is a great point of like what did that all look like, and this ties into the conversation that we've been having about athletes after their potential career, or when they hit certain blocks or ceilings, and then the reality faces them looks them right into the face.
It's scary.
Yeah.
So, and especially with something that you put your whole life into. Yeah. So you go, like I mentioned, I was 3.5 years old, playing this game, the conversations in the car with my dad about it, the friendships that I built.
Mom, like, I told you should have played soccer.
Yeah. Like that, the friendships that you build, your identity becomes EJ, the baseball player.
Yeah.
You go to a family party or a booster event or something like that, and it's, how's the season? How do you feel? We're following you on Google and MLB, and it's like you stop looking at yourself as the person. EJ Encinosa, the person. It's the player. It made a decision a little bit easier for me that I just wasn't doing well, and the kind of the game, the love of the game kind of changed, and at this was fading, I would say. And at the same time, because I got drafted in my junior year, I was periodically finishing school. Yeah. So it got to a point where I just walked. I had my degree. I started seeing the big picture and looking forward towards the next steps, and I decided to do it. I kind of looked at myself in the mirror, and it's a lot of it is self-critiquing. And I thought, a great thing that I did that helped me during that time was I realized I have more to offer this world than being a baseball player. Luckily, I was instilled with education as being a big part of my background, and did very well from an academic.
At what were you enrolled in?
I was in business, so I originally wanted to be an electric engineer. So I went in, and the classes were during baseball hours. Yeah. So our coach goes, "You can't be an engineer. If you really, you're good with numbers, why don't you try business?" Yeah. And I was like, "Sure, it's kind of general, it's fine." So I did 2 years in general business, and then my junior year I decided to major in finance. So I did that my junior and senior, and a minor in sports administration. Nice. So that all came together. I go, look, you're not going to make it, and even if you do make it, you're going to be there for a cup of coffee. You're going to be back up and down. You're not one of the prospects. You start seeing the game from a business view and how management looks at it. Yeah. So I, after talking to my family and really evaluating my options, I decided to kind of make that jump.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then that led to certain opportunities, and now you're working at the bank, and you've grown that side of your career into an awesome, successful one. And I think too now, so that conversation that I've mentioned just earlier is, really what can we add value to those younger players in not just for baseball, it's for all major sports. And what does it look like to transition? And it's tough because a lot of times conversations around sports is like, there is no plan B, because it's plan A only, right? Your mind as athletes is like, we're all in. And I think that is an awesome attitude, even with business, like be all in, be focused. And I think a conversation on the side on how to prepare for life after, and positioning certain things, if that's on a financial level, what does it look like to make strategic investments, lower risk, maybe medium, it depends. That's a different conversation for everyone. That they do that on their own, but what are some avenues that you can work with, real estate obviously being one. And I think that's an awesome conversation to call it financial literacy, and really, especially because the athletes have this short window again of a career. It's typically maybe 10 to, I don't know, maybe max 15. And if they go beyond 15, like Messi, for example, where he's at 36 and he's a beast.
The 1% of the 1%.
He's a beast. Not just that I say the best in the world. That's a whole nother debate, a whole nother podcast. But
a lot of guys in Miami are going to agree with you now.
Yeah.
More than anything, we're happy to have him.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the impact it will have of him being here, a whole nother conversation too. But as athletes, to stay healthy for that long, and you knowing that very well with your injuries that you had. So let's dive a bit into that conversation to bring financial literacy to the forefront for athletes.
So I know you went across like a couple different things. So to go back to like your first point, as far as creating, ammunition for some of the guys who are currently in the seat, where they're fortunate enough to like play at a professional level, whether they're, just pursuing, at the, the top 4 sports or in the minor league process or a developmental stage of their career. I always advise guys, like, if you're in it, it is plan A.
Yeah.
Like, you need to focus on everything to, be at your peak performance. Yeah. You can't, really be thinking of plan B, to be honest, to be successful.
Yeah.
Like the guys that I knew who made it, it was all in.
Yeah.
Now there's 2 tools that I think you could use while you're doing it, and it's not a distracting tool. One is build your Rolodex, and 2 is build your brand. Regardless, I'll start with the latter first. As an athlete, you should be building a brand in today's world. With social media and the accessibility of your viewers and fans to see you. You need to be creating someone who I'd want to be the face of my brand, someone who's a good family person, someone with good values, good morals. You need to do that to be successful in anything.
Yeah.
And then going back to like building a Rolodex, so those who know what that is still, but you want to create a vast like network early on. And I tell guys all the time, while you are a college athlete, while you are a professional athlete, you are, I don't want to like sound cocky, but like people are dying to be around you.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of business owners, a lot of influencers in your hometown, or if you're playing somewhere else, that want to be around you, want to grab a coffee with you, want to grab lunch with you, just like to hear your story and to be a part of your life and help push you forward. They're more than willing to give a lending hand.
Yeah, your sphere of influence is at more of a height when you're going through that athlete period. And that's also the fruits of your labor you've put into the sports. And people naturally will attract to someone that has dedicated their time to a craft and then are excelling, and naturally there will be that attention on you, which I'm hearing is just leverage that.
It's a fact. Most CEOs are either played sports growing up or always wanted to be an athlete.
Yeah.
Like there's a huge population out there that are fanatics of sports. So you leveraging that tool just to meet people, just to have another name in your contact, someone to follow up with you, like that, if you ever were to finish, is going to help you get to the next step easier than if you didn't do any of this. And this is that there's no work involved at all with that. On the other side of it, if you don't do it, the day that you finish playing and you start reaching out, now you're a favor. Now this gentleman or this woman is looking at you with the lenses of, he needs a job, he needs money, he's asking for something from me, whether my time, my resources, capital, something. So when you put yourself in that shoe, you're already at a disadvantage. That being said, there are a lot of tools and as athletes that we have that people want to implement into their workforce, and it's a good resume, tool to add to the resume, not just just because you missed those summer internships and weren't out there at that lower entry job doesn't mean that you can't catch up very fast.
Agreed.
You're coming into the workforce at an older age. There's more maturity, there's more urgency, there's structure around you. So you can close that gap very fast. It's all the perception that you have of yourself. And then going into like finance. So back to my story. So after playing baseball and me kind of doing what I was saying, subconsciously building my Rolodex and leveraging people, I was able to get in front of, a high executive at a big financial institution who saw my potential, saw my academic accolades, my network, and, he's like, look, here are all the tools. Go out and bring in money. So I originally built my book on the idea of, I was 25 years old, turning 26 at the time. I go, I'm not going to ask for money. I'm going to give money. So I built a lot of my practice in commercial real estate.
Yeah.
So I went out to market with real estate investors who happen to be business owners, and went out to market with this financial institution's capital to provide that credit service, unlock liquidity for these families to make some generational pieces within their balance sheet. So I started getting like their viewpoint of how they looked at credit. Yep. They saw it as a tool to unlock liquidity, not as necessarily a liability on their balance sheet. Yep. Where you have passive income, where you have an asset who appreciates in a geographical location that historically has outperformed other parts of the country, and at the same time, it's a great asset protection tool. It's a great asset to pass on to the next generation. Yeah. So I started seeing that holistic view. Now, for my peers, and there's buckets for everyone, and it's different client profiles for every individual. Yeah. So, like historically, I would say, the most important thing early on in your life is buy that first piece of property, your primary residence. Don't spend the money towards rent. It's an old school thinking, and you can't sway me the other way around. There's different avenues, and you see some of these CEOs going to market and they don't own one piece of real estate. They rent. But just looking at a macro level, in today's world, everything is digital. Yeah. And what it does, and I'll go into that a little bit more, but it creates an environment that's very hard to be disciplined. Yeah. And what I mean by digital, prior generations, or even me, like growing up, we didn't have Ubers, we didn't have Uber Eats, we didn't have Venmo, we didn't have Zelle, we didn't have access to credit as easy as we do now. Just this morning, like I'm getting Amex alerts. Hey, if you're getting a free, you have a credit line for 6.5%. I'm getting it from my bank that's offering these lines of credit. Yeah. Then you also you have the automotive industry who's at an all-time high. You have kids coming out of school with it's lower entry jobs are now requiring bachelor degrees. So the cost of education has gone up, and the entry level salaries haven't moved at the same level. I'm not going to try to go into statistics, but it's a very tough place to be in. Yeah. This generation, there's not a lot of assets or ways to save money. Just because of the availability of stuff around you, and marketing that's so easy through social media that it's going to trigger you to go have that dinner with your significant other, or go to this vacation. So I think it's now more important than ever, if you could solidify that asset early on in your life, you could at least set yourself up for something that you could pay off in the next 30 years. Yeah. It's going to appreciate. This could essentially be in the back end, can be your 401k, can be your retirement, asset. Yeah. So this idea of prolonging that and trying to time the market and time your life, like you have to be really disciplined early on and try to secure that generational asset that you can have. Yeah. And then you go from there, and it teaches you a lot of life lessons through it. Like it teaches you how to handle insurance, and we can go into all that, and the real estate market in general in South Florida. Yeah. But you have insurance, how to maintain the property, dealing with your banks, knowing from like how to do a mortgage, how to deal with a title attorney, how to go from having PMI early on, different type of products that you can use, different lending resources. Yeah. Like these are things that make you grow up pretty quick. Yeah, it's amazing. It's a crash, for some people that are entering, it could really feel like a crash course, because you can read and read and read and read, but when it gets going, it's really like you learn, and you learn fast, and doesn't always go perfect, but it's definitely the best way to do it, is like get off the fence. So, well, for those that are watching, is there a specific site or link, or how people could reach out or connect with you if they like? An easy one for me right now, I don't and these, like, you could always reach out to my social media. So EJ Encinosa on Instagram is an easy way. You could DM me, and I could kind of go a little bit more further into what I do now and how I can help. Cool. I do a lot of, for the athletes out there who are in that transition stage, I do a lot of networking events, bringing groups together, because like just how we talked about a little bit on buying your first home, it can be scary. You could be thinking you're drinking water of a fire hose, and it's like you have to like dive into this, and depending on where you're at in your life, it's always good to have just like a network of guys that you have a camaraderie with, and or gals, and you just kind of want to talk shop, hear from their background, their expertise, from either like helping you find the next job in your career path, or just, you know, hey EJ, I'm looking at buying a home. Like, what is the bank gonna ask me for? What are they gonna need? Or hey, look, I have a son. I have a, you know, son or daughter now. What are some like college saving accounts that I could open up? Can you go with me over credit cards, debt, capital markets on their investment portfolios?
Lots of
like there's a lot of ways, and you know that's just my side. But you know, you have your realtors, you have your attorneys, you have your insurance providers. Across the board, there's a lot of really good guys and girls. I keep going back to that have made a, you know, a good living after sports and are willing to pass that resources to the next person. Very cool. And on behalf of those who appreciate you and us, we appreciate you for who you are on a daily, who you're being, and making that difference for those that could use it most. So thank you. Awesome. And it was awesome to chat with you today and have this conversation. I was looking forward to it. So I'm excited. And for those listening, thank you. This was another episode of What Would It Cost Florida. Until the next one.